alive, losing everything. He said, "Blessed be the name of the Lord." Now that, if you want to say anything, that is true worship to God. There's no way that I'm going to start saying, "Blessed be the name of the Lord," when I'm losing family members. Or if God did something like that to me, the first thing comes out of my mouth, "Why the heck did you do that, God? Why I oughta?" I mean, I'm going to just be honest with you. That'd be the first thing coming out of my mouth when if God would do something like that to me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not out there every day of the week cursing at people and things like that, but it's a natural reaction. It's going to be one of the hardest things for me not to do because of what's going on. I've been losing people in my life already. I lost my uncle to COVID-19, and I kept saying, "God, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" I'm getting frustrated. I didn't curse at the guy, but I got frustrated, and I keep asking, why? When every day of the week I sit there and I talk to people, when they say, "Well, why did God do this, that, and the other thing?" Well, I can't tell you specifically why, but it's just God knew that they had enough and it was their time to go. It was their time to go home. So I talk to people about it all the time, but then when I get to losing somebody, it's, "Well, why, God?" But that's one of the hardest things. If God ever does that, it's going to be one of the hardest things to go through. But I don't think he's going to, because, we're already going through enough testing already in this lifetime. Just think about COVID-19. We're going through one of the biggest tests that we can think of. And there's a lot of people out there who right now are probably denying God just because they're afraid. I mean, there's so much stuff going out there. And if you don't think that the microchip is on its way, it's on its way. Absolutely, it's on its way. It'll be here sooner than you can say, Buck is your uncle, Bub is your aunt. That microchip is going to be here before you can even think of it. But let's go look into another scripture, and that's going to be one of the hardest things. That was one of the hardest things that Job went through, losing everything. But he did not once at all sin. In fact, he worshipped God in that circumstance. And I tell people all the time, when you're going through something, the best thing in the world is just to throw your hands up and say, "Lord, I worship you." Because when you get into worship, nothing else in this world matters to you at all. Nothing in my book, when I'm worshiping, nothing else matters. I could be homeless and have no job and be broke, but if I throw my hands in the air and start worshiping God, nothing else matters to me. Why? Because I'm in that place of the holies of holy. And we as Christians need to take advantage of that. Because like one of my teachers told me in school back in the day when Jesus was around, that you couldn't go into the holies of holy. And what they didn't realize is this, that you couldn't go into the building that was the holies of holy. Now the holies of holy is inside you, and you can take advantage of going to that every day of the week. Because when God died on that cross and he rent that veil in two and ripped it in two, now you're able to enter the holies of holy no matter who you are. So it's not that you have to be a priest or a minister or this or that. You can enter the holies of holy now. So enjoy that freedom, because people back then wish they could do what we are doing today. There are things in this world that we do now that we couldn't do in the day of Jesus when he was here. And that we enjoy that freedom that a lot of people wish they could have done. Think about how many people cried out to God where they were at because they had to. See, back in the day, you weren't allowed to go into the sanctuary of the church, the temple. You weren't allowed to go in there and pray. You had to look towards the temple and had to pray towards the temple. You weren't allowed to go in there because you weren't one of the masters, the head chiefs, or what they called back then the priest of the synagogue. You weren't allowed in those places because you weren't a priest, or you weren't a minister, or you weren't something big in the church scene. So, but when Jesus died on that cross and gave us that freedom, he gave us the freedom now to enter into the holies of holy, a place that no one in their right mind at that time could enter into. No one could until now. Once Jesus died on that cross and rent that veil into two, he allowed us to enter into the holies of holy. But that's one thing that Job did when he was tested from God by Satan and lost everything. He got on his face and he worshiped God. He says, Lord, he goes, blessed be the name of the Lord, I worship you. He says, naked I come out of my mom's womb, naked I shall leave. He said, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh. And he says, blessed be the name of the Lord. So he realized that the Lord has the power to give and take away everything that he has. So therefore he gave God thanks. He blessed him and he praised him. Why? We'll get with that a little bit later. Let's get to our third scripture. Daniel chapter 3, verses 16 through 28. So let's go to Daniel. Daniel chapter 3, verses 16 through 28. Daniel, here we go, chapter 3. Daniel chapter 3, verses 16 through 28, starting at verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, everyone knows who these guys are. If you don't, we'll discuss this in the scriptures. So it's 16 through 28. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king. Now, these three men were men who were about to be thrown into a fiery furnace. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the golden image which you have set up. So what they're basically saying right here in this little scripture right here, I'm going to continue reading in a minute. No matter what, if God saves us or God doesn't save us, we still will not worship your gods. We will not, worship your gods or the golden image that you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, was mad and angry, and the expression on his face changed toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace up 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Verse 21. Then these men who were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire. Hold on just for a minute. I'm lose my train of reading here. And other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because of the king's command was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire Okay, hold on just for a minute. The flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And those 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound in the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he arose in haste and spoke, saying to those counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said to the king, True, O king. Look. Verse 25, Look, he answered, I see 4 men loose walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Verse 26. Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke, saying, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came from the midst of the fire, and the strapped... Oh, I can't read this right. And the strapped administrators governed the king's counselors gathered together, and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garments affected, and the smell of fire was not on them. Verse 28, Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel, and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and they have frustrated the king's word, and yield the bodies that they should not serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, verse 29, I'm going to keep reading a little bit. Therefore, I make a decree that any I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, basically anybody who speaks negative against their God, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their horses shall be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this. I'll read the last of it. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Okay? Sorry about that. I have a little hard time reading sometimes. So with that being said, Daniel 3:16 through 28. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were all thrown into the furnace, but never lost faith in God. And I quote exactly as they said, if we are thrown into the fire, God will save us. And if he doesn't, then we still will not bow down to your idols, to your golden calf or golden whatever idol. We will not worship your gods. So they basically went through a test and passed it. Because here's the thing. No matter what, they said, no matter what the outcome is, whether God saves us or God does absolute nothing, let us die, we still will not worship your idols. Now, I guarantee you, if they would have said, if God saves us, which he will, then okay. But if God doesn't save us, we're going to worship your idols. If they would have said that, God would have killed them instantly. There are no questions asked. If he starts saying, well, if this doesn't happen, I'm going to worship this over here. It's just like, when Moses went up to get the 10 Commandments. The first thing that happened is they all, after about, 30 days, almost 40, they decided that, hey, Moses ain't back yet. So We're going to start, I don't know about his God. We're going to start worshiping. We'll make a golden calf, or we'll worship it, and we'll do inappropriate things with it. And that's what they did. They worshipped it. They did inappropriate things. They laid